Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as we've been saying, has denounced the latest terror explosions in Bangkok Tuesday. He is today accusing Iran of the terror attacks, as well as targeting Israeli diplomats in India and the former Soviet Republic of Georgia in recent days. Israel's concern is that the next attack will be much closer to home. Here is NBC's Stephanie Gosk in Tel Aviv.
And Netanyahu today also said that this violence is going to spread to other countries, and this country is on a higher state of alert, as well as the embassies around the world. But the real fear for a lot of people here is that the targets could be softer, more unprotected targets, places like synagogues and Jewish centers around the world. And that's really the fear. They are incredibly vulnerable.
And that has, of course, happened before. Michael Leiter is former director of the National Counterterrorism Center and NBC News terror expert. We just think about the Jewish Center back in the 90s in Argentina. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, have been able to strike elsewhere around the world. How serious is the threat here at home?
Well, I think, as you said, Iran has struck overseas in the past. I think Iran's preference, even were there an Israeli strike on nuclear facilities, would not to target sites here in the United States. It's certainly possible. We saw that with the Iranian plot against the Saudi ambassador. But the geopolitical implications for Iran to do that are so severe that I think they would still prefer to strike in places like they probably did over the past week: Delhi, Georgia, and Bangkok.
And, of course, Americans in Afghanistan right next door. The bottom line is that the NYPD and their counterintelligence operatives, they're very concerned. They're ramping up their security, and there's more security around Israeli and Jewish institutions here, even in the United States. But you do not believe that that is a primary target or a primary concern for Iran?
I don't think so, but it's certainly entirely appropriate that places like New York and Los Angeles and Washington take bigger precautions now. Clearly, the tension between Iran and Israel is increasing. There's no reason that Iran couldn't strike here. And in that sense, these precautions are entirely appropriate. I still just don't think that that's the most likely path that Iran would choose.
Let's talk about what they're discovering in Bangkok. What do we know about these attacks and the Iranian footprint?
Well, I think it's still pretty early in this investigation. And clearly, Israel believes this is Iran involved. And I think all indications are, in fact, these were Iranian plots in, again, Georgia, in Delhi, and in Bangkok. And in the case of Bangkok, a raid resulted in several Iranians being detained, a grenade going off and injuring one of those Iranians, according to press reports out of Bangkok. All of these seem to be attempts by Iran to strike back at Israel for their belief that Israel has been targeting nuclear scientists in Tehran over the past 2 years.
Well, and a pretty strong belief indeed. I mean, it's pretty clear that somebody is assassinating Iranian nuclear scientists, and Israel's denied it. But there are very few actors who could play in that regime, in that field. Let's talk about Russia, because the Russian deputy foreign minister's comments today about all of this are very significant indeed.
I think they are. The deputy foreign minister stated that it would be unacceptable to Russia, to have Iran develop nuclear weapons. That's critical. Obviously, Russia is a part of the P5+1, the group negotiating with Iran on its nuclear sites. But also, of course, Russia is a key player in what sort of support or condemnation Israel might experience if it decided to strike Iranian's nuclear facility.
There, in fact, are some who say that Russia would be saying more than doing if Israel were to strike. Can Israel strike Iran, and what damage could it accomplish?
Well, I think Israel could strike Iran. The question, as David Albright just talked about, is how much damage they could actually do to the program. I think they could hurt the program. I think their ability to stop the program at this point is really open to question. And a lot of it depends on, were Israel to strike, exactly what kind of steps they would take, how extensive those strikes were.
And is our intelligence as good as David Albright seems to believe? Could they have something that we do not know?
I actually agree with David on this point. I think it's unlikely. Our intelligence is quite good on Iran. There's been a lot of focus over the past 2 administrations. All that being said, we've been surprised before, and we always have to be ready for surprise again.
Michael Leiter, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.